In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your air spring in your Ford Expedition. It's located behind your rear wheel. Anytime you're doing air suspension work on your vehicle, you're going to want to make sure the system is shut off and also disconnect the negative battery terminal just in case. Before servicing your air spring, you're going to want to use a scan tool and vent the system. Make sure there's no air in the bags. Remove your negative battery terminal using an 8mm wrench. Remove it, set it aside. Using a 21mm socket, we're going to remove our lug nuts. Remove your wheel. First, we're going to take out the solenoid. You're going to do that using a thin screwdriver, and you're going to remove the clip that's locking it in place. So that's the clip. Take that out. After you remove your clip, you're going to turn your solenoid to the left, and it will release some air when you do that. Then you can turn it the rest of the way and remove it. Just tuck it away off to the side. Now we're going to remove these 3 nuts. Up top here, I'm going to start in the back. That's the hardest one to get to. I'm using a 15mm wrench. Unfortunately, you really can't get a ratchet wrench in there. At least I can't on my car, but maybe you can. This one's pretty rusty. Now that I have that one in the back off, I'm going to start taking out these 2 nuts as well, but I'm going to leave them right on the thread, at the last thread. And I'll leave this one right about there, just so we have some control after I lower our lower control arm. Next, we're going to remove the arm off of the height leveling sensor. To do that, you're going to use a flathead screwdriver, pull out this clip. You can use a pry bar if needed. And take it off that bowl. Using a 30mm socket, we're going to take off this nut. We're going to use a 27mm socket to take out this bolt. There is a locking tab on this nut, so it's not going to spin. I also have a pole jack holding this so that in a controlled manner we can lower it down. Now we're going to take out this lower bolt the rest of the way. I use a punch for the rest of the way. Nut still on the top. It's holding it by a thread. And now we're going to take out this bolt the rest of the way. So now we're going to lower this down, and this should stay hanging for a little bit. And then we'll get the nut on the top. You may need a pry bar if yours is rusty. And that should be enough to get it out. We can always pry it down a little bit more later if needed. I'm going to leave my pry bar there. Make sure you have a good hand on the air spring. Remove that nut. And it should drop down. I'm going to lower this down a little bit more. I'm not going to lower it completely. I'm just going to make sure that lip stays there for now. Let's see if that's enough clearance. You may have to go back and forth a few times to find the right distance to lower it. Watch out for that brake hose. All right, there you go. I'm using a 16 millimeter open socket to make sure I can see if this starts to spin. I have a pry bar between my two studs here and here, so this keeps this from spinning. And I'm going to take off this nut. So our nut's pretty rusty. I'm using an offset box wrench and a 1/4 inch ratchet with a 7 millimeter. You may not have the exact same setup. Do your best. You just want to keep that center from spinning and just spin the nut off. Looks like we're there. Take off that nut. Next, we're going to open up these two tabs. And we're going to pull this out. Like that. Once you get the shock out, you're going to take this out of the vise and take this part off. Using a 5/16, we're going to take out this bolt on the top, and there's one also on the other side. Set that aside. Now we're going to take this cap off. Set that aside. If your bump stop is in there, you're going to need to take that out. I'm using the wooden handle of my hammer. I'm going to push it towards the top. There we go. If you can't get your hand in there, use some pliers. We're going to replace these two O-rings with the two big O-rings that are in the package. Let's do that. You're going to pull off the old ones. I'm using a pick that doesn't have a point on it. And you just want to do a quick match up. Looks good. I'm going to clean the area and then replace the O-rings. I'm going to use some silicone paste for where the O-rings live. Remove excess. And now we're going to put our O-rings on. I'm going to start with the bottom one first. And then the top one. Make sure your surface is clean around the edges too. Now we're going to remove these two O-rings on our shock. Do the same thing. Get it started with a dull pick. Wipe this off. Clean it. Put some more silicone paste on. I'm going to try to aim for the one on the back first. Once you get it started, you just move your finger around. It should fall into place. And do the same with the other one. Make sure everything's clean before reassembly. Going to insert your shock. And make sure you snap it into place. There's two tabs that you separated to pull it out. You want to make sure it's back in there. Put your bumper on your shock. Put your washer here. And now we're going to put it on the shell. When you're lining this up, make sure that your bolt holes on the metal part line up with the casing here. You might have to give it a little tap to get it into place. I can see that one. I'll stop my bolt here. And then I'm going to check my other side. Now we can put our bolt in here, and we can tighten these down. Wrist tight's good. It's going into plastic, so you don't want to over tighten anything. Now we're going to get our nut started. Once that starts to spin, you're going to take out the same combination of tools you used to get it off. We're going to torque this to 35 foot-pounds. We're going to replace our O-rings on our solenoid at this point, so let's do that. I'm going to take off the big one first. And we're going to take off the smaller ones. I'm going to start with this one in the back. And I'm going to get this one in the front. You're going to want to add some silicone paste to where the O-rings are going. So just put a little bit on and just put it around. Now you're going to install your O-rings. Start with the big one. And then do the two small ones. You're going to have to get it over that nylon washer in there first. Do that one further away. And then put the other one on. I'm going to add a tiny bit more silicone paste. and that's ready to install. I'm going to feed it through. I have a bungee cord on my lower control arm holding it up. That way I get a little movement. Make sure your solenoid cover is where it belongs, towards the back of the truck. Now we're going to pick it up and catch one of the studs with our nut. Once you get it through, you can get your nut started. Now we have our pull jack underneath the control arm, and we're going to put it back in place. I'm going to guide this, the shock, as we do that. Make sure everything lines up correctly. Again, you're going to have to keep guiding the shock as you put your control arm back in place. All right, keep pushing that control arm up and making sure everybody's lined up. Once you're there, you're going to start putting your bolts where they belong. This one goes here. Make sure that's all the way through, and then put your nut on. You're not going to be able to do that after. You have to put it on before the bolt goes all the way through. And we'll get that started in a minute. And now we're going to go for this bolt. The head goes towards the front of the car. You might need a pry bar to position it, and a punch maybe if it's way off. Ours is a little bit, but we can get it in. Just going to pick it up a tiny bit. And push that all the way through. You can get your nut started. Make sure you have your nut on and it's through the hole for the tab. To lock that nut in place, you're going to put a pry bar in if it's a little off for the bolt to come through, and just wiggle it around until it lines up correctly. And you're going to thread it in. It should go in pretty easily. If it starts to get tough, you're cross-threaded, so take it out and try it again. I'm using some pliers to hold that nut in place, and I'm just going to zip it in there. We're not going to torque this until ride height, but it's good to get it snug. Now we're going to tighten up the nut. I'm going to hold the head still. We're going to torque that at ride height as well. Now we're going to go up top and put on the rest of the nuts. Now we're going to tighten them up. Get these snug, and then we'll torque them at ride height. Now we're going to hook up our height sensor. Push it on, make sure that spring clip is in place so it locks it on. Now we're going to put our solenoid back where it lives up here. So you're going to line up these two ears with the two notches in the bracket. After you line it up, you're going to turn it, you're going to go up a little bit, turn it to the right, and then you're going to push up. And then continue to turn it to the right. Once you catch it, you can reposition your hands and turn it the rest of the way. Now we're going to put our spring clip on. Once you get it lined up, you're going to push it into place, and it should snap right in. Now you're going to need to get this to ride height. I'm going to use my pole jack. We're going to torque this bolt and nut to 350 foot-pounds. Torque this to 221 foot-pounds. I'm using a crow's foot on my torque wrench. We're going to torque these nuts to 30 foot-pounds. If you can't get a torque wrench in there for the back two, for the one in the back and the one on the side, just do your best. Now that we're torqued at ride height, we're going to lower the suspension down. Install your wheel. The lug nuts on. Now we're going to tighten up our lug nuts. I'm going to start at the one at the bottom and walk the wheel on. Using a 21mm socket, we're going to torque our wheels to 150 foot-pounds. We're going to do that with a crisscross pattern. Put your negative battery terminal on, push down, and tighten it up. Make sure it's tight. Give it a wiggle, see if it moves. If it doesn't, you're all set. After you finish your air spring installation, you're going to want to use your scan tool and make sure that it's functioning properly.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.